So a couple nights ago on his show, Tucker Carlson went after Donald Trump for his recent take the guns first, due process second comment, and I believe rightfully so. But I'm pretty sure that there's a rule at Fox News that you can't bash a sitting Republican president without immediately following it with a segment about how horrible liberals are, which is exactly what Tucker's going to do here. So let's go ahead and listen, and then we'll discuss.
Trump did say something stupid about due process the other day, and the fact is, though, that the left has been opposing due process, the most basic of our constitutional rights, for a long time, particularly on the subject of gun control. When was the last time you heard a Democratic politician praise the Australian solution to gun violence? A lot. If you're watching CNN, you probably heard it today. They say it all the time. Question is, do you know anything about how Australia implemented gun control? Well, confiscation. They took the guns away from the population by force, and not just from criminals and people who've been convicted of wrongdoing. The government of Australia took guns from law-abiding people who had done nothing wrong. They punished the innocent. What exactly did that look like? Well, here's an ad from one of Australia's gun confiscation efforts. It shows naked men in a prison shower and warns the public to turn their guns in or else they'll be sent to prison too. Effectively, the government threatened law-abiding citizens with prison rape if they didn't surrender their guns. That's what liberals are calling for in this country every time they talk about the Australian solution. And there are a lot more ads like that. We're going to tweet them out tonight. By the way, that's what the assault weapons ban is. Democrats are pushing for a law that would outlaw more than 200 kinds of firearms, as well as all guns that have various irrelevant cosmetic features like bayonet lugs and lots of other things people who wrote the law know nothing about. If that law passes, and it might if the Democrats take Congress, you will be punished. You'll have fewer rights. But wait a second. You've done nothing wrong. You never shot anybody. You have no plans to shoot anybody. Doesn't matter. Democrats will treat you the same way they treat convicted felons, as unworthy to be trusted with firearms. Meanwhile, their bodyguards will still have the most powerful guns available. Of course they will, because they can, because they're in charge and you're not. The left is also demanding the government bar people under 21, these are people who are eligible to vote and serve in the military, from buying firearms. Now, again, most people under 21 haven't done anything wrong. They haven't been convicted of a crime or committed crimes. But a few of them have. So Democrats are saying all must be punished. Imagine applying the same standard to other constitutional rights. For example, let's say somebody shouted fire in a crowded theater and scores died. Would the rest of us lose our right to free speech? These are real questions, and they're inconvenient so soon after the massacre in Parkland, for which the country is still grieving. But we should remember, this is a country worth living in precisely because we take the Constitution seriously. When we stop taking it seriously, it won't be a country worth living in. President Trump seems to have remembered that. Many on the left never knew it, and they don't care anyway. You often hear progressives say they want an honest conversation about guns. Well, of course we do too. And that's why we've invited the heads of almost every different gun control group to come on this show and tell us what they really believe. We'll let them talk. Mike Bloomberg's group, George Soros's groups, Gabby Gifford's group. They've all refused to come on.
Okay, so there's a lot to break down there. First, to the idea that Democrats oppose due process. Let's not forget that under Bush, we saw CIA torture, we saw the establishment of Gitmo, and we saw the passing of the Patriot Act. All blatant violations of due process, but Tucker just completely ignores that. And the main argument of the piece is that, you know, all these politicians point to Australia as kind of a model for gun control, and that's really because they are. He really paints it out like it's this horrible situation in Australia, and he brings up how guns were confiscated. It didn't really go down like he makes it sound. There was no like door-to-door confiscation. They didn't come and search your home and take all the guns that you had. What they did is they basically tightened down regulations, right? So they banned semi-automatic rifles, I believe, and they require licensing to own a firearm. They require registration, and they had a mandatory buyback program for all guns that didn't fit the new criteria. But they never went door to door and confiscated all guns as he suggested. Then he puts up some newspaper out of Australia that threatens prison rape for anybody who doesn't turn in their guns to the federal government. Okay, when liberals talk about gun control, they're not talking about fucking raping people. that's not what liberals want, like he insinuates. Then he brings up the First Amendment for some odd reason, and yelling fire in a movie theater. That's already illegal. It's been illegal, so I don't know what his point is. It sounds like insanity to me, but whatever. Then he just finishes everything off by bringing up George Soros, as if the NRA didn't spend $54 million on campaign donations in the last election cycle. I mean, look, I'd agree with you, Tucker, if you're bringing up corruption, but you just seem to want to point your fingers at the left and not at the right. If you want to fight corruption, I'm on board with you, but let's fight it on both sides, okay?